Hi, it's Christine Madera from modernmystic.net and Conversations from the Edge podcast. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper on authentic genius, which was our mystic wisdom for the week. So genius is often thought of as intelligence, as having a very high IQ or intelligence quotient. And what we talk about with this IQ or intelligence quotient is the ability to make connections and create, ideas from those connections, and are basically the advancement of our cognitive abilities. But authentic genius is very different than that. So first, what is your authentic self? What is that force that's coming through you that makes you authentic? So this is actually like your infinite being, your infinite self that's expressing itself through you, in your body, through your life, through your experiences. And so authentic genius then, well, let's get back to that authenticity for a moment. This is your unconditioned self. This is who you are when you're not ruminating over who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, the roles that you have, the mask that you wear. This is that spontaneous flow of you when you are free from all of that conditioned aspect of self. So when you are allowing this to flow through you, allowing this authenticity, this infinite self to flow through you without censoring it, without restricting it, then that's that flow of authenticity. So what makes that authentic flow part of your genius? So your authentic self and your infinite self has its own wisdom, it has its own insight, it has its own awareness that it is bringing into the world through you. Now, you participate in this through really by following your interests, by following your passions. And so your interests are fired up in you, your passions are fired up in you, because this is part of that expression of your infinite self, your infinite truth, your authentic self. And so as you begin to follow these interests and begin to explore what those are or experience them, so sometimes it's music, it might be how you focus in relationships, it might be with the natural world and having insights into animals or gardens or whatever. For me, I see and experience things in systems, and I don't know how not to actually experience things in systems, because my whole self always thinks of things in systems. So when I experience something, I really only understand it when I can put it in, I can embed it into the systems that it is already in. So say, for example, belief systems. I can't really understand an individual belief system without really having a structure in which that belief system flows or works. And so I think in these systems and the various layers of systems, and it's part of the expression of my authentic genius. Now, what does it do for me? Well, it lets me do my podcast because I like to think in the systems of consciousness. That's kind of my passion. So I express myself in that way. And everybody has their own unique interests and experience and expressions of this infinite self flowing through you. So you can think back maybe to when you were young, before you had, too much pressure on how you're supposed to make money in the world and who's going to pay you for what you want to do. And what were you really interested in? Like, what captivated you? What would you spend your Saturday afternoon doing that was not like your schoolwork, wasn't assigned, wasn't something that you were supposed to do, wasn't the sport you were supposed to play, or whatever that was? But what would really captivate your imagination? So for me, with the systems, I was really interested in how people thought and in how their understanding of the world gave them a different experience. And I would sit on the floor in the living room with encyclopedias and find different countries, different cultures, read about them, and imagine myself in there or talking to somebody from there, and how would their experience differ from me, so I could understand their beliefs within their system and contrast those with my beliefs within the system that I was in, to better understand belief systems and consciousness in general. So it's not something they teach you in school. but it's what I did. So you might have something like that you did as well. Like, what were you fascinated with that's persisted through your life? Maybe it's not your job, but maybe it's how you do your job, your way of understanding people, your way of understanding how the flow of information works, your way of understanding the world. It could be how you have learned to move your body in a particular way. It can be all kinds of different things. A lot of these things are not things that are directly translatable into a job, although, some people certainly have done that. And it can be one of the ways that you express yourself in your work, in your families, in your relationships, in your friendships. But it's really about tapping into what those interests were of yours and then beginning to explore them, because as you explore them, when you're in this zone of genius, right, then more and more you allow this flow of your infinite self, your authentic self, your genius self to express through you, and you get insights, you have more awarenesses that begins to fuel what it is that you're bringing into the world. You have very original ideas and thoughts about how the world works or about how the world should work. And these are not coming from your conditioned self, which is oftentimes why we dismiss them, because nobody said it before. It's original content, it's flowing through you, and we all tend to self-doubt ourselves because, if it's not validated by somebody else, it must not be true, which is a total thing for your conditioned self, but not your unconditioned, infinite, authentic genius. So as you tap into and discover those things about you and begin to trust your intuition, begin to trust your awareness, begin to trust that flow of the infinite you through you is bringing you insights, awarenesses, information, and those kinds of things that are not already in the world. You are bringing them forward. That is part of who you are. And as you allow this to flow, that is your authentic genius. So take a look at yourself, take a look at your world, take a look at what really fuels you. And it's not necessarily just one thing, although there might be a core at the center of that one thing that gives you, a thought. Like, I'm interested in gazillions of different things, but I always look at them in terms of how the system works and how the system works energetically from that infinite level, and how that system works in the various levels of conditioning and structures and those kinds of things that we have in our physical, material, conceptual world. So that's my obsession, and I can apply it in a gazillion different ways, but that's the obsession. And it applies to relationships, it applies to consciousness, it applies in my writing, it applies in my books. Like, everything I do has that element in it, because I don't know how not to do that. That is the expression of my authentic genius, and you have authentic genius as well. Don't confuse it with something that you have to make money with. Don't make it something that you have to be validated by somebody else with, because oftentimes they're not going to validate it because it's original stuff. So trust yourself, trust your genius, carry that forward and begin to discover what that is in you, because the more that you allow that to flow, the more exciting and interesting and fun your life will be. All right. So not always on the external level, like your excitement factor might not ramp up by 10 times, but your inner satisfaction, fulfillment, excitement, joy of life, all of these things really begin to overflow when you are expressing your authentic genius. All right. So if you have questions about that, post them below. Start a conversation, and I hope you really take this to heart and find your authentic genius, because it will make all the difference in your life, in your experience of yourself.